All right, welcome to Stampscapes around midnight. We're going to try this background paper by Deanna Tubbs. And what this is, what I mean by that, if you don't know, is it's a background paper that she's designed pretty much for the purpose of scenic stamping. I guess you can use them for other things, but she's a scenic stamper, so they naturally go very well. Now, I take it this is supposed to be a cloud in the sky, of course, underneath the full moon right here, but I have this Explorer stamp right here, and I thought that would really look kind of cool in here, and this could be the slope of the side of a mountain, like Everest or something like that. It's really kind of like in a moment that they don't really want to be in, when it's that snowy, or windy, stormy, etc. But I thought we could come up with something kind of dramatic in that spirit here. So we're going to try something out here. All right, so on those types of high peaks, sometimes that's really above the, it's not above the snow line, but there's, kind of a combination of snow and rocks and ice, like the Hillary Step or something like that. So I'm going to add in some of the rocks right here. I'm wiping off some of this down here, so maybe I can add in some additional snow or something like that right in that space, but we'll go like this at an angle, okay? Boulders with lichen here. Kind of standing up for a little bit of leverage here. I like to press down a little bit harder than probably I usually do, just because this is a pre-printed paper, albeit matte and porous. I like to make sure that my ink transfers onto the surface, okay? Because those are printer inks that are, on top of this paper here, so it's going to be a little bit more sealed off than, just like a piece of blank cardstock, be it matte, satin, semi-gloss, or glossy. Okay, so see how that kind of transitions right there a little bit. Good morning! Yeah, pretty late one here, fellas. How are you? Okay, let's see here. Now, to represent something this high up, such as I don't know, one of the, whatever they call it, I forgot how many meters those summits are. We're going to do a lot of, or not a lot of, but some higher peaks down below. Like when you're up at Everest, you're looking down at all these summits, or any of those really high summits, K2 and Mount Everest and what is that, Makalugao, and all those kind of Himalayan types of summits. So let's add some of these down here. We might go for a couple of them, actually. Let's see. Okay, again, I'm kind of wiping off the bottom of it so that it transitions a little bit more so than just stamping it full ink. Like that. So it's kind of coming out of the, whatever, the clouds down below. And let's go for some additionals. We're going to offset it a little bit more. Let's go right about here. Okay, so ink up again. And then we'll go right over here. I'm kind of overlapping that slightly. Like that, okay. It's like the more of these we stamp, kind of the higher up we get in elevation. Now I might go for, I don't think it's gonna work. I was gonna say, I might go for that second impression using that one inking so I get a much lighter mountain in the background, summit, peak, whatever. But let's just do it like that. We'll blot it off once, and then we'll wipe it off a little bit more, than the other one. So it's stamped off and then wiped off. And then hopefully I get kind of a lighter version of it here. So the lighter version hopefully will kind of recede Yeah, something like that. Okay, and I could go for another one over there, but I think I'm going to leave it at that. And I'll try to get in a little bit of white pigment ink in between those just to separate them a little bit more. If it looks kind of, I don't know, somewhat natural when I get to that step there. And then let's go with our characters here. So I want to add in some additional snow down there somehow. But what I'll do is I'll have my characters right in here like that. I don't necessarily need them to be standing right on top of the rock. But let's get some of them right up into that lighter area. Okay. Let's maybe the two ground breakers and Mount Everest, Sir Edmund Hillary and the Tenzing Norgay. All right, let's see this right here. I kind of wiped out the bottom of them, so everything's kind of transitioning dark to light, high to low, okay? And let's go. I feel like I'm wanting to tilt them back that way, but I'm trying to fight against that urge. That's because everything's kind of going at a slant right here. I'm usually stamping things on a horizon, something flat, but not like this. So it's kind of fighting off the urge to twist it like this to get, stamp them straight up and get off this sloping ridge here. All right, and there we go, like that. A great view for them, but I wouldn't necessarily want to be there at this moment. Unless that's just, I don't know, it's like like a light dusting of snow in the wind there. All right, so this shouldn't be, I don't think it should take too long to finish off this piece because, in these types of background papers, a lot of the whatever the scenario is already taken care of us in terms of the lighting and a lot of times the drama of the card, with the background already in there, which allows us to just kind of concentrate on our imagery and like things like shading right here. Okay, so I'm going to use mostly a white pastel pencil and a black colored pencil. Okay, so now Deanna creates these in pastel form, so kind of adding in some additional pastel work over the tops of pieces, kind of in theory, should harmonize pretty well with the background paper. So it's like pastel in the background and some pastel in the foreground, kind of sandwiching our imagery in between those different layers. In theory. It's because I don't know how to use pastels like she does. Okay. All right, so I'm adding in some additional toning into these rocks. I mean, it goes into them pretty, just the impression alone is looking pretty decent, but I like to give a little bit more dimension to these rocks. So I'm kind of shading them, and then I'm leaving the tops of those parts of that rock a little bit lighter. So see, there's already some dark and light up there already, but I'm just trying to add a little bit more shading in there in terms of, I don't know, whatever, heightening the volumes in there, okay? So you're adding kind of some grayscale into the piece. Try to transition it a little bit darker to light like that, okay? So that's what I'm doing at the base. So it's like darker to lighter like that. All right, so we can do that as well in some of these mountains in the background too. If shading something that's already really light, don't shade darker than the actual impression of it. So I'm just going to go with a little bit of it maybe. All right, something like that. And let's see if we can do a little bit of lighting in here and, I don't know, have it look reasonably harmonized with the background. Okay. It might be kind of my feeble attempt here. So it's like the opposite. What you're doing is you're shading up top and adding a little bit more. And then as you go down, you add a little bit less. The opposite of shading, where it's a little bit heavier on the bottom and you lighten it going up. Like that, with this one, you go a little bit heavier like that. And then I'm using a little bit less down below. Now, one thing about the pastel pencil, if you add too much, you can always just kind of wipe it off with your finger, or you can take an eraser, whatever, and you can blend it around a little bit if need be. So as I do this, I'm kind of creating a little bit of reflective light coming from that moonlight like that, okay? When they're doing, when people are making summit bids for Everest, they're always taking off at night so they can get back in the daytime. They always kind of time it to where they're getting up to the summit, and then there's plenty of time to get back, hopefully, in daylight. Because it's always kind of the most dangerous part of it is getting down. A lot of people can get up, but a lot of people kind of get trapped up there on the way back. Okay, so adding in some of this highlights on some of these peaks right in here, these summits, the lower peaks. Just that background in there, I'm kind of putting a very dull application of lighting on it. Again, it's kind of a muted version of that summit in there, so we don't shade it too heavily. We don't put a lot of contrast onto there because it's far away. Okay, so these things are kind of waking up a little bit in the darker areas like that. I'm going to extend this wispy kind of snow onto some of my characters like this. We'll be adding in a little bit of white pigment too, but I think we can kind of take advantage of I don't know, the scenario by giving it a little bit of movement like this. I can take advantage of this pencil and kind of add in pencil marks into it like this. That looks almost like a wave right there. I'm getting more gutsy as I'm doing this. I'm doing these wisps right up into this area like this. Kind of like that. A little bit of movement. All right, let's add in some additional highlights. I'm going to do something here too. I think I'm going to add some tone to these characters' clothes and their packs. I think I'm going to go red right in here. And let's go with a bright yellow. Kind of mountaineering wear often is quite colorful. And bright. Maybe it's, so if they get lost or if they're in a avalanche, it's easier to find them maybe. Or maybe it's just the manufacturers for these types of gear, want kind of attention-getting colors on their gear, for marketing purposes. Okay, let's see if we can add in some highlights, some crisp highlights on top of some of these softer applications of lighting, meaning the pastel pencil. The pastels are very, very soft, but this adds in a crisp element right onto it. So sometimes I'm never quite sure if I'm going to be able to apply this type of paint over the top of pastels because the pastels are kind of powdery. And, I think a gel pen, that has a roller ball, even though I'm not really using gel pens as a roller, sometimes those get a little bit more clogged. So, but this one seems to be applying over the top of this with no problem. All right, we'll go with something like that. It's a little kind of shimmering light in there. And let's add in, I think, a couple little areas on top of our, maybe some of our near peaks or closer, I don't know, whatever, closer neighboring summits. I guess that's what this would be. Although they're, that's like miles away, but we'll just add a little bit of lighting to it like that. And let's do something right here. I'm looking at all this space around in here, and I think it can use some additional texturing. So let's go with some stars, even though you wouldn't see stars on such a gigantic full moon night like that. But this is rubber stamping, and I think it would just look good, so why not do it? All right. Dr. Martens, bleed proof white. Opaque watercolor paint. And we'll try to hit it. I'm kind of torn. I'm not sure if I just want to add this in the stars, but I almost feel like splatter painting it this way too, to represent that swooshing kind of, wind in the snow in there too. But let's just add in a little bit of textures like this first here. And then, I don't know, maybe I'll go like this. I'll do a little bit of both maybe, and we'll see how it looks. So this is adding another layer right over the top of the scene too. So it does bring a little bit of kind of textural continuity to the entire piece by having a common texture over everything. You know, little white dots. Okay. And let's see here. Let's go in and add some finishing touches into this piece with some additional white pigment ink. Okay. All right, white pigment ink, and we'll add a little bit of separation in between some of these mountains. This is a little bit darker out here, although it's the same darkness as right in here too, but I think let's keep the lighting kind of a little bit more contained like this. Hello, Megan. All right, let's see here. Welcome to midnight here, Megan. Midnight stamping. It's when you get your most creative types of things to come out. See that right there? I mean, just, bringing that little cloud in between these two mountains like that, these two peaks. I mean, it'd probably be good to mask this one out and add it in like that, but, so be it. Let's see. And when I stamped out this Rocky Peak Small like this too, I transitioned it from wet ink to dry ink so that it would stamp out darker to lighter. Okay. And that's where I'm adding in some lighter elements in there. You know what I mean? It made this part, this part of kind of adding some lighter tones down here. Right on top of that black impression. It's really a gray impression because I wiped off some of the ink. So it just saved me a little bit of time. So, from adding this type of effect down here. It's kind of like glowing down there now a little bit more. Okay. These pre-created background papers are pretty fun to do. Like I don't think I'd be doing like an Everest scene, you know what I mean? If without this this background paper here, I wasn't, I don't know. When I looked at it before, I wasn't thinking that either, but I just took a look at it and thought, we got these kind of explorers. I think it'd be cool to see them on like a slope, a la something, like a Everest, type of, or high summit scenario like this. I think they're in the death zone here. 2 a.m. there, yeah. Yeah, so it's well beyond midnight there. Catch your people right before their bedtime or after their bedtime. I should do it like that all the time because I'll lull everyone to sleep, if they weren't sleepy before. All right, so see this right here, kind of putting them in a little bit more of that, whatever that snow swept slope like right there, kind of integrates them a little bit more. I'm going to add in a little bit more than I normally do. Normally I'm doing like this low-lying fog on the ground or something like that, but I think this scenario could be potentially a little bit more dynamic with, a little bit more movement maybe. So let's add in a little bit more over the top of them like that, but I don't want to, obscure them completely though, so go like something like that. How about a little bit more clouds down below? Like something like that. And all right, let me see if I can do some more of these little wisps like that that give it more of that kind of windy feel here. Yeah, Phyllis, 3 a.m. Oops. Too much here. 3 a.m. I hope it's not a school night for you. Here we go. It's like something like that. That wispy kind of, oh, whatever. It's like a spindrift coming, coming off the mountain. Like this. It seems I'm looking at this piece here, wondering if there's anything else that I should be doing. It seems kind of weird to be done with a scene, so fast here. But I think that's all this really requires here. It doesn't have like room for like a quote stamp up here, like a word stamp maybe. I wouldn't put a word right here though. I'd put the word like over here, but it would be like right on top of the moon, so it'd look kind of awkward. So I think that's all I would do. Let me do one more thing. So this is like a really small little detail here, but we have all these little textures up here, and on a couple of these larger stars like that, there's a pretty decent amount of like open space up here. So we see, just in the background paper itself, there were these soft types of clouds like that, right? So now we have introduced, these sharp little, whatever, elements of light. So I can just, get a little bit of pigment ink on here, and let's do this right here. Let's dab a little bit of that pigment ink on a couple of these stars. It kind of makes them look like they're glowing a little bit more, but which is kind of cool, but it's also adding. This is like a really small detail here, but it adds in a little bit more textural continuity between our added elements in here and just the foundation paper, or this fog down here. You know what I mean? It's the same type of thing that's going on in like the tiniest of little details up there. And I think that it just kind of brings it together, but I don't know, it changes the sky quite a bit because everything was like sharp up there, but now you've added something soft, and we have this cloudy illuminated glow going on down here, and then you're saying, well, this thing that's, whatever, a million miles away, or I don't know how far stars are, they have the same type of kind of soft lighting treatment as, what's basically the foreground in here. So it's kind of bringing a little bit of a continuity in terms of texture to kind of the farthest reaches, in a scene, as well as the foreground right here. So anyway, so Deanna, if you watch this, you didn't know that you were doing a Mount Everest type of background paper, but hey, your background papers are pretty universal in terms of, ways they can be used, and they seem to kind of whatever, what's the word, induce kind of a creativity. In some cases, I'm doing certain types of scenes that I've done other things where there's less slope and, background, things like that. But with that kind of wind coming off of there like that, it's a little bit of a different type of, I don't know, whatever scenario like that. So I need to move an hour or two east. Make it schedule or something so you can set your alarm, huh? That's a good way to be when being a stamper there, Phyllis. I'm totally a night owl too. Dean, oh, 9 a.m. in your country. What country is that? Is that Dean Unsi? I can't pronounce that. Coach. You're somewhere in, let's see, are you in Europe somewhere, right? Germany. Thanks for joining in on the scene here. So maybe this isn't Everest. This is the Alps here for you. Organizing coach. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. All of us stampers can use a little bit more organization. But anyways, I should have taken a photo of this piece right here. I'm glad you like the scenes here. This is fun. Sometimes I mention in my videos when I'm using colored pencils on my scenes. I just used a black colored pencil, but Germany, stamping kind of started like the hobby of rubber stamping. I mean, it started like for some people in the 1970s and 80s, but it really kind of got moving a little bit more in the 90s, early 90s, and it seemed like the German stampers, and there was a lot of stamping in Germany, relatively speaking, because Hein Design is out there in Germany, and it seemed like we'd see there wasn't the internet back in the early to mid 90s or something like that, but it seemed like every time I saw stamping coming out of Germany, it seemed like they were all like scenic stampers, stamping scenes, and they were all like really good at colored pencils, it was scene stamping with colored pencils. And then someone confirmed that to me later because they started having a rubber stamp convention, which is still going on out there in Germany. I think it's, again, put out by Hein Design. But yeah, a lot of good scenic stampers, out there. I don't know what they're doing these days, in terms of the stamping public as a whole, but there was a lot of good scenic stampers back in the day. I don't know why that was the genre there in Germany. And again, they were like really awesome at colored pencil work for some reason. Maybe it's because out here we're using a lot of dye-based ink pens like by Marvy and stuff, so maybe just colored pencils were the media that was very readily accessible out there at the time. This is pre like rubber stamp color pads too, so it was just awesome work out there. Okay, so will I seal this? Yeah, I will do that, because the only thing on here that really needs the sealing though is the pastel pencil. Okay, so some of those touches in here and that lighting on there, that would be prone to potentially rubbing off. Now, it's not really super like fragile, okay, the way that I'm using this. And because I didn't build up a lot of pastels on here, like Deanna's original piece, this is probably a really thick layer of white pastel on there where you really need to seal it, okay? But the way that I've used it, it's just, this is somewhat of a porous surface right here with a little bit of texture to it. So this is kind of, it's on there pretty good. Now, if I rubbed it like this, I'm sure it would come off, but I think a quick spray, a very light spray with some workable fixative would be good. Or if people don't have that, I don't know if people use hairspray anymore, but sometimes with pastels or something like that, you can do just some hairspray or something like that. Any type of light sealant, but just spray it from distance, so that you retain that touch of light on dark. If you spray it too thick, you can lose some of it, especially in these really delicate areas. Well, thanks for joining in. I appreciate you checking out the videos, and hope the lessons come in handy for you. All right, so anyways, yeah, a real quick scene, which it wouldn't have been had I not started off with the paper. But I don't know, it's really fun to kind of play around with these different scenes here, background papers, I mean, and see what we can come up with them. So I have a couple more pieces of paper that I'll use. I saw someone did a scene using this one right here. I think they didn't. I don't remember how they did it. It was posted on Facebook. I think she used this with a cabin or something like that. And that was the background. And I saw Deanna use this one in another scene. But a couple more pieces of her background paper. I blasted through them because you can make such fast scenes with them, and fast and dramatic at that. So they're pretty fun. This one, I don't know. This one right here, I think it's the most, maybe my most creative usage, you know what I mean? Just in terms of a different type of scene. I just saw that wind coming off of that, or like the edge of a mountain, or something like that. And I thought it would be kind of cool in this type of scenario right here. I mean, it's certainly easy. 3 stamps right here, and, done. Just a little bit of shading and highlighting, kind of white and black media, and that was it. All right, so anyway, thanks for checking out the live stream quick scene, and hope to see you on a future live, or if you watch them in replay because they're too late at night. But have a great rest of evening, and Coach, hope you have a great rest of the day for you.